Welcome to Hashnagar Digital. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates tonight. We turn to a story unfolding on the northern edge of our continent, where a diplomatic firestorm has erupted between the United States and Canada, two nations long celebrated as the world's closest allies. At the center, President Donald Trump, whose aggressive trade policies have turned the legendary Alaska Highway into a flashpoint, threatening to redraw the economic and political map of North America. What began as a war of words over tariffs has escalated into a tangible crisis. Proposed tolls, product bans, and a high-stakes mining project now threaten the very fabric of international cooperation. Everyday citizens are caught in the crossfire, truckers hauling goods through the Canadian wilderness, Alaskan families facing empty shelves and soaring prices. The Alaska Highway, once a symbol of wartime collaboration, is now a strategic choke point in a high-stakes geopolitical game. As we delve deeper, we'll explore the history, the policies, and the people whose lives hang in the balance. To grasp today's crisis, we must understand the Alaska Highway's unique legacy, a 1,387 feet of engineering, built in 1942 by U.S. and Canadian forces to defend North America during World War II. What began as a military lifeline has become a vital commercial artery, linking Alaska, Canada, and the lower 48. Trucks carry everything from produce to oil equipment, sustaining communities in the Yukon and northern British Columbia. The highway is more than infrastructure. It's a bridge between peoples, fostering cross-border culture and economic interdependence. For Alaska, it's a crucial backup when maritime routes fail. The current tensions threaten to sever connections built over decades of peaceful coexistence. When Canadian officials propose tolls or restrictions, it strikes at the heart of this historic partnership. The Alaska Highway's transformation from symbol of unity to weapon in a trade dispute underscores the gravity of the current standoff. The standoff began in early 2025 when President Trump's administration announced sweeping 25% tariffs on Canadian goods, claiming to protect American jobs. The move sent shockwaves through Canada's trade-dependent economy, prompting swift, targeted retaliation. British Columbia led the charge, proposing heavy tolls on U.S. commercial vehicles using the Alaska Highway. Yukon halted purchases of American-made products for government use and restricted U.S. companies from bidding on contracts. Liquor stores in BC and Yukon stopped selling alcohol from Republican-led states, directly targeting Alaska. Ontario imposed a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the U.S. These coordinated measures signaled Canada's resolve. Economic attacks would be met with firm, united defense. The conflict escalated rapidly, leaving little room for diplomacy. Provincial governments took the lead, applying pressure while Ottawa maintained a broader diplomatic stance. The message was clear: Canada would not passively accept American tariffs. The centerpiece of Canada's response is the proposed toll on the Alaska Highway, an unprecedented move, targeting U.S. commercial trucks and directly taxing the American supply chain. The tolls focus economic pain on U.S. businesses, sparing tourists and ordinary citizens. Premier David Eby of BC frames it as a defensive measure to protect Canadian industries and workers. Yukon quickly followed, halting liquor purchases from U.S. companies and restricting access to government contracts. Symbolic gestures, like talk of banning Alaskan athletes from the Arctic Winter Games, amplified the message of unity and resolve. Premier Ranj Pillai emphasized these actions weren't personal, but necessary to defend Canadian sovereignty. The toll booth standoff is now the most visible symbol of resistance, marking a fundamental shift in the relationship. Canada is no longer willing to absorb economic blows without responding in kind. The Alaska Highway, once a path of partnership, now marks a deepening divide. As tensions peaked, President Trump fast-tracked the Ambler Road, a 201-mile industrial corridor through pristine Alaskan wilderness, reversing a Biden-era rejection over environmental concerns. The project aims to unlock $7.5 billion in critical minerals, reducing U.S. reliance on foreign sources. But the road cuts through gates of the Arctic National Park, threatening ecosystems and indigenous lands. On the same day, the U.S. government invested $35.6 million in Trilogy Metals, a Canadian mining firm, making itself a 10% shareholder. This move complicated the narrative. While feuding with Canada, the U.S. became a business partner in a controversial mining venture. Trilogy's shares soared, but for many Alaskans and environmentalists, the investment felt like a betrayal. The dual action, approving the road and investing in a Canadian company, underscored the tangled economic and political stakes. Proponents hailed it as a win for resource security. Opponents saw it as federal overreach and environmental disregard. The Ambler Road became a new front in the trade war, pitting economic ambition against environmental and indigenous rights. The controversy deepened the rift between allies. The economic fallout is already hitting home, with Alaska at the epicenter. Tolls on the Alaska Highway would raise the cost of shipping essentials, produce, medical supplies, oil equipment. Costs inevitably pass to consumers. Businesses face delays, shortages, and higher operational costs, threatening jobs and economic stability. Governor Mike Dunleavy has called for de-escalation, warning of irreparable harm. In Canada, U.S. tariffs threaten industries from steel to agriculture, while retaliatory measures force provinces to seek pricier alternatives. The 25% electricity surcharge could make Canadian power less competitive. Both sides face job losses, revenue drops, and fraying cross-border ties. Border communities, long accustomed to easy cooperation, now face uncertainty and division. Symbolic bans and product boycotts deepen animosity, eroding goodwill that may take years to restore. The trade war's true cost is measured not just in dollars, but in lost trust and regional instability. Beneath the economic and political clash lies a profound environmental and human rights crisis, centered on the Ambler Road. Indigenous Alaskans and environmental groups fiercely oppose the project, fearing destruction of ancestral lands and the western Arctic caribou herd. The road would cut across migration routes, disrupt ecosystems, and threaten food security for tribal communities. Caribou populations have already plummeted. Biologists warn the road could push them further toward collapse. For Indigenous leaders, the project is a threat to culture and survival, not just an environmental issue. The Trump administration and mining companies tout economic benefits, but critics see corporate interests overriding science and community voices. The fight over Ambler Road is a classic clash: resource extraction versus environmental and cultural preservation. For many, the project's approval is a profound injustice, sacrificing a way of life for short-term gain. The dispute has drawn strong reactions from leaders and stakeholders. BC Premier David Eby defends the tolls as essential to counter U.S. protectionism, declaring, "We control the gates on our side of the border." Yukon's Premier Ranj Pillai stresses the actions aren't personal, but necessary to defend sovereignty and a way of life. On the corporate side, Ambler Metals' Caleb Freilich hails the mining project as a win for resource security and jobs. Scientific experts and Indigenous leaders, however, warn the Ambler Road ignores evidence and threatens a collapsing caribou herd. "It's reckless," says biologist Jim Dow. Tribal leaders call the project a death warrant for our way of life. The conflict is about more than money. It's a clash of worldviews, economic ambition, versus environmental and human rights. The stakes are existential for those on the front lines. The Alaska Highway dispute has pushed U.S.-Canada relations to a breaking point, transforming a symbol of unity into a line of division. Both nations face economic pain, disrupted supply chains, and eroded goodwill. The only way forward is a return to dialogue and mutual respect, suspending aggressive policies and seeking common ground. Any solution must address not just economics, but also environmental and indigenous concerns. True cooperation means balancing prosperity with responsibility and justice. The Alaska Highway can be a barrier or a bridge. The choice is up to leaders in Washington, Ottawa, and the provinces. For the sake of their citizens and the continent's stability, they must choose cooperation over conflict. The world is watching, and the legacy of this moment will be defined by their ability to rebuild what's been broken.